What's up, guys? Welcome back to another week's episode of Closed by Mo. My name is Mohammed. I am your host. I'm a real estate investor and I'm a realtor in no particular order, by the way. I'm based out of the Empire State of New York. This week's episode is going to be really fun because I finally get to talk about a lot of the sticky situations I've run into as an agent. And I've only been an agent for less than a year, and I've already run into a handful of a couple of very fun scenarios. Now, I had some hesitation about putting this video out, to be totally honest, because I'm actually knocking on a lot of bad agents and their bad behavior. So other people that are in the same industry as I am, let alone the same system that we use, the same MLS system. So I was a little bit nervous about it, but I realized, you know what? My mission is to help people at the end of the day, and whether you're a person considering becoming an agent, or whether you're a buyer or a seller, or you're just curious about what it's like to be in real estate in New York, I hope you find value from this video because I'll talk about a few of the different scenarios I've run into that just gave me a little bit of the ick. It's like, this agent should not have been doing this. And what I hope you get from this is a better understanding of exactly what goes on behind the scenes, so what sort of happens in the kitchen, and hopefully what to look for if you're ever considering hiring an agent to either help you buy a property or sell a property. All right. So without further ado, let's jump into some of the different scenarios I've run into, and I promise all these scenarios are completely true. I'm not going to be calling out any specific agents, but all these three scenarios have actually happened to me in the last 10 months. All right. Now, the first scenario I still remember quite vividly because I get frustrated thinking about it. At this point, myself and my clients, we had been house hunting for a while, and we finally found a property that everyone really liked. This was right around the time interest rates were like rising up, but inventory was, sellers weren't still ready to compromise. So we gave an offer that was a little bit above asking. It was a very generous number, and the offer was actually accepted. I have no idea what happened, but the listing agent's demeanor completely changed. While we're trying to coordinate inspections and going back and forth on contract amendments between the attorneys, every time I would communicate with her, her tone was very demeaning. She would say things like, "That's not how we do things around here, and I've been doing this for so long, I need to tell you how to do things, and you need to get moving ASAP, you need to take control of your client." Like, these are things you can, maybe communicate the message in the same way, but a lot more professionally. And I come from a corporate sales environment. I have been big league before. My priority is always my client, right? And their objective. So in scenarios where I had to take sass from people, if it's for the greater good, I'll shut up and take it. That's not an issue. But this was on another level, man. If I could go back and ask that listing agent one question, it would be, do you think by treating me this way, I'm motivated to work with you and communicate with you effectively? Because spoiler alert, we actually ended up losing the deal, right? And I can 100% without any doubt say that it was definitely the listing agent's fault because she wasn't able to communicate effectively in that scenario. Now, I don't know what exactly happened, but in scenarios where one agent is a lot ruder than the other, and let's say the buying agent or the selling agent has a very good relationship with the client is going to trust his or her agent without a shadow of a doubt. So if I'm telling my client that, hey, this broker is being incredibly difficult and we're running into these scenarios, he or she is less likely to compromise and is also going to get, frankly, very annoyed whenever the other side tries to nudge harder, right? So we actually totally ended up losing that deal. It was very frustrating, but it always worked out for the better because my clients, we ended up finding a much better home, much better area at a better price as well. Now let's go on to scenario two, talk a little bit more about unethical agents and things that are just downright illegal. Now, the second scenario is not only just downright unethical, but it's frankly illegal. Now, spoiler alert, I didn't actually end up reporting the agent because of one of a couple of reasons. Number one, I didn't want to go through the headache of reporting him. It's just a long and tedious process, and my broker needed to get involved. And number two, I didn't have any proof of this happening, right? There was no text exchange. There were no emails written back and forth. There was no dirty paperwork that was signed with his information on it. To give you an overview of the scenario, my clients that I've had a very good relationship with, and who at that point I was speaking with quite regularly to go look at different properties, they decided one day when they were returning from a shopping trip, they saw an open house sign. They decided to stop by, totally unplanned, so I wasn't aware of it. They get in the property and they really like the property, right? They're not too happy with the price, so they wanted to give an offer around 5 to 10% lower than the asking price. But they told the listing agent that was there, saying, "Hey, we're going to give a very generous down payment to make sure that give us a stronger chance of getting the offer accepted." Now, I'm hearing this secondhand from my clients who I obviously trust a lot, and they trust me. So we've always been communicating through all the different properties we've looked at. They were the ones that actually called me to ask whether or not this was a good idea, but apparently the listing agent told them, hey, if you really like this property and you want to give an offer that's 10% below asking price, give the offer with your high down payment, but give me an extra $8,000 to $10,000 in cash under the table, and I will talk to the seller and not present any other offers. This just blew my mind when I heard about it. And not only is this unethical, illegal, but the buyer is taking a big risk, because there's not going to be any formal paperwork signed saying that they're going to give this agent $8,000 to $10,000 in cash to get their offer accepted. And for the seller too, the seller is giving the responsibility to his or her listing agent to get him top dollar for the house. And here is the listing agent trying to benefit themselves through the different offers that they're receiving. So my buyer called me thinking that this was a good solution because now him and his wife can finally get an offer accepted. And I explained to them very frankly two things. Number one, hey, if you want to go ahead with this and you want to make an offer on this property, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to get involved in this. My reputation is at stake, and I don't want to be associated with this. And number two, I explained very delicately, without shouting, that you're not going to sign any paperwork saying you gave this agent $8,000 to $10,000 in cash. He could take this money, turn off his cell phone, and pretend like he never had this conversation with you, because you don't have anything in writing. There's no text to support this, there's no emails, there's no paperwork. So there's a very big risk that you might lose all of your money. Now, they understood that, and they realized, okay, cooler heads prevailed. Maybe this wasn't the property for them. I still ended up calling the agent after the fact saying, hey, this is the feedback I'm getting from my client. Is this true how the conversation played out? And the guy just blew up on me. He's cursing me out, saying things like, how dare I accuse him, and how long he's been doing this, and who am I to teach him how to do anything. It was just a very big, messy situation, and he ended up hanging up on me when I kept pushing further. But that just goes to show you a lot more about how, unethical agents can hurt not just buyers, but also sellers. So it's not as if they're extremely for their client, who in this scenario, the listing agent's client was the seller. They're more for themselves, and that ends up hurting everybody. Now, the third and last scenario, I'm going to talk more about exactly how greedy agents can really affect a client-agent relation, an already existing client-agent relationship, and how that can get damaged further with greed. Now, the third scenario, I'll give you a very good idea of exactly how greedy some brokers and agents can be. I think is incredibly eye-opening. So, my client and I had been looking for a house for her and her family for about 6 months now. Now, I have an excellent relationship built up with this client because we've been through thick and thin. We've made very hard offers on other properties. We've gotten our hearts broken. That really brings a client close to their agent, because then she knows I'm looking out for her best interests, right? Now, on day, let's say 1, we took a look at this broker's property. The whole family loved it. We decided to give an offer above asking with a very generous down payment, which is about, I think, 30%, if memory serves me right. And we felt very confident that the offer would be accepted. By the end of day 1, the broker also acknowledged that they received the offer. Now, day 2 rolls around, we don't hear anything back. I'm like, okay, let's give them another day maybe, because I'm sure they're getting a lot of offers and the seller's deciding between a couple. Now, day 3, something strange happens. My client calls me, and she's like, hey, Mohammed, I just want to let you know the listing broker contacted me directly. So the listing broker for that house contacted my client directly, and that immediately set off alarms in my head, because I was like, wait a second, when I submitted that offer sheet, I didn't put any of my client's contact information there. As you shouldn't. I think the most that you should do is just put their address information when you're filling out the address section. So I was so confused, 1, how he got her number, and 2, why he's contacting her directly and not going through me, since I'm the buyer's agent in this scenario. She goes on to tell me that the listing broker told her if she wanted to improve her chances of getting the offer accepted, she had to resubmit the offer, but this time, instead of listing me as her buyer's agent, she had to list him as her buyer's agent. So in this scenario, if she had done that, the broker would have been both the selling agent and the buyer's agent. So that's what we call dual agency. And for the broker, that's incredibly beneficial, because now he doesn't have to split the commission with anyone, right? Usually, if it's a different buyer's agent from another brokerage that's bringing the buyer, the listing broker has to split or share the commission with the buyer's agent. In this scenario with dual agency, he doesn't have to do that, right? So I heard this and I was like really frustrated at first, but then I realized my client calling me is a very good sign, because it means she trusts me enough to tell me this, right? And she was very frank about it. She said, look, Mohammed, I told him that in no way in hell is anyone else going to be her agent besides me. That made me obviously feel really good. And surprise, surprise, a couple of days later, we heard back that our offer wasn't accepted for unrelated reasons, I'm sure. So it's really interesting, and I wanted to share these 3 scenarios before I close out here to get just to hope that everyone has a better understanding of how relationship heavy real estate is as a whole. Your reputation matters quite a lot, and I actually have a spreadsheet of all the different bad experiences I've had with other brokers. So this way I have an understanding and I have a way to track it, that the next time I have to interact with them, I know the level of acumen that I'm dealing with, right? And it helps me, just to help me get a better edge. I'd also like to make a minor correction. A friend of mine that's also a broker pointed out in last week's video I had made an error. I had said that you don't need to be a citizen to get your real estate license in New York, and that's partially true. You don't need to be a citizen as long as you have a social security number or a taxpayer identification number. However, you do need a work permit. So you don't have to be a citizen as long as you have a social security number, but you do need a work permit. And with that, guys, I'd like to sign off for this week. I really appreciate you being patient through me as I vented about all the different icky scenarios that I've run into with very unethical and greedy brokers. I appreciate it. Please drop a like and a subscribe. That really helps the channel grow. I'm looking forward to next week's video, but for now, thanks so much. Bye, guys.